Is this what day is this?
It's Mail It In Friday.
Yeah, well, the dude abides.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Drive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, up on TSN 2. Brian Hayes, and there's Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. What's going on, Dave?
What's going on, Hayes? How you doing, my man? I'm out here on the wide open prairies of our great country, and the weather's better than it is in Toronto. How often can you say the weather is better in Winnipeg than it is in Toronto?
Yeah, that's a rare comment, but you're right, man. It was 6-7 degrees this morning. And it's quarter zip weather for me. This is back-to-back days. I'm rocking the quarter zip. I had the jeans on. Took my kids shopping today with the intention of possibly getting myself a couple of things. Never happened, naturally, right? Sold it as like a back-to-school thing. We went for lunch, and then my mom was coming to pick them up because I'm coming in to do the show. And we were across the street at the Scarborough Town Center, and we hit Aritzia, we hit Lululemon, we hit H&M. Not one story I had any intention of stepping foot in, but it did cost me some money, as you can imagine, and now we're all set up. And now we have, because one outfit for first day of school, that's not appropriate. Now it's like you got to have options, right? My oldest daughter, got to have options just in case it's warm or it's cold or, what happens. So we had everything covered this afternoon.
So you couldn't fit in a back to school at Golf Town.
No, exactly. And that was actually what I was thinking. I'm like, if I can just jump into Golf Town, I need a couple new gloves, right? There's a couple new things I need for the fall weather as we turn the page here. But no, Golf Town was not in the cards. But it's all good. Yeah, and you're right. The weather, it hasn't been perfect, but it is sunny, which is better than it was yesterday. And I presume the Dome will be open, right? I presume it'll be open. You would hope so. And I'll tell you what, man, you can feel it with the Jays-Brewers of all teams. Neither team has won anything in the playoffs in a long time, clearly. Like, that's the thing about the Brewers. I would think the Dodgers are looking at them saying, good for you. Like, good stuff. That's great. But let's see what you got come playoff time, right? There's probably a couple of other teams, I'm sure, like the Phillies and teams of that ilk, even the Mets, although they haven't won anything in the playoffs in a long time, that are probably looking at the Brewers thinking, let's see what you're really made of. And I would guess the same thing applies with the Jays. And certainly with the Tigers. Like, you look at the top team in the National League is Milwaukee. The top two teams in the American League are Detroit and Toronto. It's been a long time since any of those teams actually won. So I'm sure they have to continue to prove it. And that's the beauty of a weekend like that and this one in particular, it's a litmus test. We don't see it that often over the course of 162 games and dozens of series. But this is as big as it gets with Milwaukee in town tonight. You can really feel the energy in the city.
It's a great moment, isn't it? Because I loved what Eric Lauer said, because he pitched for the Brewers a few years back, right? And he was talking about how this is, to his eye, quote, a dirtbag matchup. And I think what he meant by that, Hayes, is like, these guys do not have stars, right? Like, they have stars. Vladdy's making the $500 million. Bo's a star. But they don't have an MVP candidate, either team.
Right.
Neither team's going to have an MVP. Neither team really has a Cy Young Award winner on the roster this year. Like, that, no one's
Peralta's going, and he's been rocking. But yeah, you're right.
Skeens has got it. Yeah,
absolutely.
They're facing Peralta. Who's the closest thing? The Jays are facing Peralta tonight, and he's been a revelation. But he's not beating out Skeens.
No, he's not.
And they don't hit home runs in the way that the Yankees do. They're just kind of grinders, right? They make contact. They get on base. They're 1-2 in hitting with runners in scoring position. Mm-hmm. Jays are first in average with runners in scoring position. Milwaukee's second. So they're just they're opportunistic. They're grinding it out. They're dirtbag teams that have found a way to get to the top of their respective leagues, and nobody expected it.
That's exactly what it is. Like, both of them, you look at it and you're like, prior to the season, I did not have either team penciled to be in the situation they're in. Milwaukee was in They're anticipating they'd be a competitive team, a pretty good team. Jays over the last 5 years have had good teams, clearly. Last year was more of an outlier now that you look at it. You know, prior to last year, they went to the playoffs 2 years in a row, and the year before that, they won 90-plus games. But you're right. In terms of the star power, Vladdy pops. Bo is a star in this market. You know, he doesn't ring out throughout baseball. And the same thing in many ways in Milwaukee, yet fundamentally they're both very, very strong. They both have depth. And tonight, with Peralta going from Milwaukee, you know, obviously the story is that Shane Bieber is making his home debut tonight. And I am very curious to see the pop he gets, because this is when it really rings out. This is when it really feels like it's the real deal. You start on a Friday night in Miami. It almost felt like they shoehorned him in. They didn't, but he was prepared. And you heard more about the Buffalo start than anything else. And then he goes down there. He pitched great. And it's been a week. Like, he's been sitting waiting now. And I'm curious what he's got going into a game in a series like tonight. And as big as this series is, and it is huge, this is a marquee series because of the standings. The Yankees series next week and then the Red Sox series in a couple of weeks, those are actually the biggest series the rest of the season. This one is not. You know, this is about bravado. This is about ego. This is about a litmus test. This is about you not getting punked at home if you're the Blue Jays. Although I don't think they will, because they played really well at home all year, and they've always played up to their competition. You and I have talked about this all summer. They've played really well against really good teams. So I have no reason to believe they won't continue to do that this weekend. But they're in New York next week. That's the series. Like, that's the biggest series. We were talking about it, Ryan and I, prior to coming in here. Is this the biggest series of the Shapiro era? And I'm not sure. He was there in 16. You know, they went to the ALCS. That didn't count. It was Anthopoulos and Beeston's team still. You know, he had some big series, I'm sure, when they first got back into the playoffs in the Vladdy era. This one, again, very, very substantial because of the records and because of the buildup. And it could be, in a perfect world, a World Series preview. But it's even bigger next week. This is about surviving the next few days. When you go down to Yankee Stadium next week, that's where we're really going to figure out what's going to happen the rest of the way.
Yeah, well, you're right. This is about surviving, Hayes, because right now you're looking at it. You're 3.5 up on the Red Sox, who've won 4 in a row, but the Red Sox have got the Pirates for a few now. Mm-hmm. You're 4 games up on the Yankees, who've won 5 in a row and are mashing like crazy.
Yep.
And they've got the White Sox for 3 more. And here you are against the best team in baseball at home. So you don't want to be going into, you don't want to go into that series against the Yankees, with less of a lead than what you have right now, ideally, right? You don't want this sort of to be a turning point where, you get swept by the Brewers, they sweep the White Sox. Suddenly, you're going in there; it's nearly neck and neck, and this is a huge series. I don't know if it's the biggest the Shapiro era. You're right, because every series from here on out is going to feel really big when you're trying to clinch a division.
Yes,
but it's big for a lot of reasons, and I just think it's kind of fascinating because. You look at the preseason Vegas win totals, Hayes, like the Brewers were 82.5. They got 83 wins right now.
Right.
The Jays were 79.5. They've got 78 wins, with almost a month left in the season. Like, I just love the storylines of both these teams, and it's great to see them meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, the other reality here of where the wild card is going, and there's still a lot of games to be played. There will be jockeying for position. Kansas City's still lurking, to their credit. The Royals are still lurking. I don't think they're going to get in. It feels like, as we've said, countlessly over the last couple of weeks, it's going to be Houston, it's going to be Detroit, it's going to be Toronto, and then Boston, New York, Seattle. Like that feels like what we're looking at. And as we know, whoever the third wild card team is, they're going to play the divisional team that doesn't get one of those top 2 seeds. As of right now, that would be Houston. That means if Boston catches you, if New York catches you, you're likely, who you're playing is one of those 2 teams.
That's right.
In the wild card. And I would relish that opportunity because it would obviously be, thoroughly entertaining, and you'd like to believe at a minimum the Jays would hold on to that top wild card spot so the games would be at the Rogers Center. But you don't want anything to do with the Yankees in a best 2 out of 3 wild card.
No.
You want nothing to do with that. And that's where, when you talk about Shapiro and Atkins and how they're looking at this, They've done the wild card dance twice. Seattle and Minnesota, they didn't sniff a win, right? Like, in the idea of putting yourself back in that position where you're going to be in a wild card spot if you drop, And I don't think they will. Again, I have faith in them based on what they've done all year against the best teams. And yes, they're in a tough situation right now with Milwaukee, but Milwaukee's beatable. I think they're getting them at the right time, right? Brewers lost last night. They're playing okay. They're not playing great. They had that heater a couple of weeks ago. They've cooled off naturally. Jays have been really good at home. But the Red Sox, if they don't cool down, and if they take 2 or 3 or sweep the Jays in a couple of weeks, or the Yankees do the same thing, and somehow the jockeying position leads to the Jays dropping out, that's who you're playing. Like that, you're playing the Yankees or the Red Sox, and it's a negative thought, it's a dark thought, but it's one that I'm sure Shapiro and Atkins and Schneider and all the players have to be aware of. Like, you've got to hold on to this top seed. It's incredibly imperative.
Oh, it's incredibly important. You're right. And, hey, man, you're right, though. You're catching the Brewers at the right time. Like, they went on that 14-game win streak, but they've lost, what is it? They've lost 8 of 12 since. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, that's the question here with both these teams, Milwaukee and Toronto, Hayes, is like anytime you're defying expectations and you've exceeded what anybody kind of projected for your team, there's always, those people in the corner kind of tapping their watch going, when are they going to come back to earth, right? And with the way the Brewers have kind of, they're on a bit of a cold streak. The Jays, when you look at the way their bullpen is sort of limping through the second half here with the 29th ERA in reliever ERA since the All-Star break, they're like both these teams are showing signs that the apple cart could topple over, right? If you're not careful. But as you say, every time you've heard a doubt of the Jays, they found a way to say, no, not so fast. Don't doubt us yet, because they come back and kind of surprise you. So I wouldn't be shocked if they do that again here, and this bullpen sort of finds a way to right itself, and they can find a way to hold on to this lead. Yeah,
I mean, again, they've done it all year. We're almost into September, and they've set up the rotation for success this weekend with Bieber tonight, Gausman tomorrow, Scherzer on Sunday. And, in terms of the mentality of those other teams, Aaron Boone's taken a lot of heat for his somewhat, nonchalant confidence in the Yankees, right? When they were struggling in June and July and even in early August. He's like, I believe in our team. And once we get to September, we'll be fine. He might be on to something, it's Yankee fans they hate on him for that kind of stuff. And they've bobbled the ball around all year defensively. They've been a mess. They've had a lot of issues at different times. But it's a long, long race, and the Yankees, they have confidence, right? They deserve that because they do make the playoffs every single year. They were in the World Series last year. So that's their viewpoint. I can guarantee you. They may not say it publicly, but their viewpoint. Michael Kay was representing the company 2 months ago when he won in his big diatribe, is that they're the Yankees. They're going to figure it out. They're better than everyone, and the Jays are the Jays, and they're going to come back down to earth. That, I think, has been inspiring for the Blue Jays. But now it's crunch time where the other teams are going to dig in, and the Yankees are. Having won 5 in a row, the Sox have won 4 in a row. So you got to keep it together here with Milwaukee in town tonight. We're getting some news down at the Rogers Center right now that I guess Jimmy Garcia is going to have season-ending surgery, clean up scar tissue. That's not a surprise. He's been out for a long time. That's disappointing because he's an arm that I think John Schneider trusts. There's a reason they brought him back this year. He was never healthy. But there is some, I guess, positive news on the Anthony Santander front. He will do a full slate of baseball activity today, including bullpen or batting practice on the field. So I'm assuming he's going to face some live pitching. I mean, they'll be floating in pitches, but nonetheless, and I guess he's going to travel with the team to Cincinnati. It sounds like he's actually relatively close.
Wow.
If he's taking live BP and he's on the field and he's going to start traveling to try to get, acclimated with the team again, it's still not quite yet September, and the roster expands, right, as of September 1st. Not that that's going to factor into him. He's on the 60-day IL, and they can kind of adjust that as they choose. But still, nonetheless, I mean, I like it. Like, it's another potential option between now and the end of the season that Santander could be a guy that steps in.
$92.5 million bats are A, expensive, and B, always welcome in your lineup. As long as, Hayes, that the one thing with Santander, though, that worries you is that, you're in this pennant race. Every game's going to matter. He's going to go on a rehab stint, and then he's going to come back to the major leagues, and then they're going to have a period where they give him at bats. Mm-hmm. And, he's a notoriously slow starter. We saw it this year. Now, some of that may have been injury related, but he was essentially a non-entity at the beginning of the season before they sat him out with the shoulder problems. And so you wonder, Hayes, like how short or how long is the leash for Santander to get back into his groove, boarding the proverbial moving train of a pennant race when he did not start this season out well. He's coming back off injury, and he is a slow starter to begin with.
Yeah, those are all questions that need to be answered, and you're probably not going to get the answers, right? You're probably not. You're just going to have to allow it to happen, or you're just going to put a halt to it, because how much can he really heat up? How much can he really show you in 5, 6, 7, 10 games before the end of the season? Maybe enough because he's a veteran. Maybe, but he's also a guy that at this point you're likely going to have DH or be a pinch hit, an option off the bench.
Right.
And Springer's DHing tonight with Clement hurt. Barger's going to hit second again, which, Schneider's been committed to him, and I think he deserves it, especially what we saw 2 nights ago. He had the big hit, and you got to hope that launches him out of this slump. But he's playing third base because Clement's hurt, right? But I think when Clement returns, with certainty, we can say Clement's going to play third, Bo's going to play short, Jimenez second, Vladdy first. Barger, if he's in the lineup, if you're facing a righty, that's the guy you're going to want in right field. If you're going to have Springer DHing, which has happened, Nathan Lucas has been a really good right-handed bat for them, or left-handed bat against righties. What happens there?
Right.
If I guess what I'm proposing here is with Santander, where do you find at bats for him, unless you're going to put Springer in the outfield, and then I guess you're looking at Barger or Lucas coming out.
Well, exactly.
And those two have been really, really clutch for this team for a long time now.
Yeah, that's kind of goes back to that trade deadline argument, right? Of we were all talking about, okay, you want to add, but how much do you want to disrupt the chemistry and the sort of role-playing, every next man up kind of mentality that kind of fueled this team, right? And those two guys have been a big part of that storyline of the depth of this team, the ability for the offense and the timely hits to come from so many different places. And so, we've seen it a lot this year already, where guys get demoted who don't deserve to get demoted, guys get sat out who don't deserve to get sat out, because there's no passengers on this team, right? So many guys are contributing. But that's the question Schneider's going to have to ask himself is how many at bats am I going to give Santander in lieu of a Barger or a Lucas, right? Who've done nothing but their job. Mm-hmm. And yet, hey, when you got $92.5 million tied up in a guy, of course you're going to give him at bats.
Right.
Are they going to be wasted at bats is going to be the question.
That is the question, because they and this is where John Schneider comes into play. We had Keegan on yesterday, and Keegan was talking about, 5 things he wants to see throughout the rest of September. And one of the points he made was John Schneider continuing to be himself. And what Schneider has tried to emphasize, and I think he's done a good job of this year, is, he's going to play his gut at times. He's going to stick up for what he believes is right. When he's in the moment, he's going to go with what he believes is right. That's an ownership play. Like Santander is one where the owner might sniff around and be like, well, we're paying this guy so much money. What are we doing? It's been a wasted asset for him this year. You'd think they would look at it appropriately and say, even without him, look how much money we're making, because they're winning a game, they're leading the AL East, and they're going to the playoffs, and they're selling out every single night. So maybe that is, will afford them to look past that a little bit. But, Santander's a legit, he's a power bat. He's a 40-plus home run, switch-hitting power bat. He's a game-changing option. And Ideally. And another reality is the other guys don't have any playoff history. Barger doesn't know what's coming in October. Lucas isn't a guy that was relied upon at any point in his career in big playoff moments. So that's another kind of, I guess, part of the conversation is, how do you consider that? Yes, reps are one thing, but how do you also take into consideration the history and how comfortable they're going to be in the moment? Because a lot of these guys are kind of stepping into uncharted territory.
Well, look, you start making a list of all the guys who haven't proven themselves in the playoffs on the Blue Jays roster, and it's a long list.
Yeah,
and it starts with, hey, let's start with Vladdy and Bo, right? And then Santander's got a grand total of 5 playoff games on his resume, so he's not exactly a seasoned World Series, veteran here. He's not, he's never been there. So I agree with you. These are tough choices for Schneider, because you don't have a lot of playoff pedigree to go by. Can you even look at that? And man, these lineup sort of situations are going to be, very difficult for him to figure out at times. If all these guys stay healthy, if Santander is an option, you're right. Like Santander, ideally, like a switch hitting guy there's a reason you gave him all that money, because you thought you needed this power bat for these very situations to contend in the AL East, where you were getting out slugged by the Yankees, where you did not have that sort of, that power through the lineup that you felt you needed. And you're not really hitting that many home runs this year, although, you've started to a little bit more after the break. But yeah, this is a 40-plus home run guy. That's the question, though. He's how much runway is he going to need to get up to speed?
Well, and again, who you're playing. If there's a lefty on the mound, then that's makes it easier. Like Barger's coming out, and Lucas may be coming out, and there's Santander who can step in a situation like that. And it may be situational, right? You may have a scenario like that, but listen, this is a good problem to have. You wish you had a bullpen arm coming back as opposed to a bat, right now. Like, the offense has been very formidable. It's been productive. They put up runs. They've been great with runners in scoring position. They've been clutch. You wish, everyone was returning to health, but maybe that Garcia had a better outcome, but he didn't. So Garcia's done for the year, surgery upcoming. But Santander, again, is down at the park, I guess, right now, taking batting practice, and he's going to travel with them to Cincinnati after this weekend. So that's pretty substantial news and a pretty big update on that front. Eric Kratz is coming up of Foul Territory, former Blue Jay himself. He'll join us in 10 minutes. We'll get his take on this. Like Santander, would he trust it? I feel like veteran ball players would say you go with the vet. You go with the guy that the guy that, yes, he's had a mess of a year. Like, it's been a horrible first impression, largely due to injury, clearly, for Santander. But prior to the injury, it was a mess. Like, he never got off the ground here. Like, he never got off the mat. It never started well for him. But he is a veteran that has proven his talents, and we'll see what Kratz has to say about that, including what he thinks of Brewers Jays tonight with Bieber on the mound and Peralta on the mound for the Brewers. So we'll catch up with Eric in about 10 minutes. We'll get into the Marner Masters conversation that has caused a big storm. Get your take on that a little bit later this afternoon. And the Parsons deal, Micah Parsons deal, happened during the show yesterday, Dave, at 5 o'clock. It was a pretty wild live reaction. And I went home and I saw the Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, press conference, and I didn't think they made it better. Thought he made it worse in many ways. I thought Jerry Jones indicating that they started their pursuit of a trade by finding a defensive tackle. Like it was almost like, you always say this about the draft. You never draft for need. You never draft for need. You don't trade for need when you've got a scenario like this one. Like Parsons, yes, if it's a 1-for-1, maybe you do that. Hey, we have an abundance of wide receivers, so we're going to trade one. We need a defensive tackle. Or we have a lot of linemen. We need a linebacker, so let's see if we can go 1-for-1 here. That's not the case here. This should have been everyone call us best offer wins.
Right.
Instead, it's, well, we kind of need a defensive tackle, and there's Kenny Clark, and he's 29, so we'll just work with the Packers. And if I'm the Cowboys, again, this scares the hell out of me because I can reason with the sales pitch. I think it's wrong, but I can reason with we're going to reset the whole organization. If that's the plan, it's not going to work out. Bygones be bygones. He doesn't see eye to eye with us. We don't see eye to eye with him. Yes, we got Dak and CeeDee Lamb, but no guarantees they're going to be here beyond this year or the year after that. We may have to reset the whole organization. Okay. I think that's the wrong play, but I can understand it. I can reason with that. But where that comes to a halt for anyone believing in it is that the guy who's going to come up with that plan and then orchestrate the plan is Jerry Jones.
Right.
Which kills any optimism you could possibly have. Like, you can't spin this if you're in Dallas like, oh, right move, Parsons is overrated, too much money, blah, blah, blah. They need to reset. If you had a competent GM or an owner that was standoffish, I might be able to listen to that. But you don't, and so I can't. So it didn't make me feel any better if I'm in Dallas based on what Jerry and Stephen Jones had to say in response last night.
Well, I bet it made you feel damn good as a Packer fan, for sure, and as it should have. I heard from a couple Packer fans last night who were like, where was this when Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback? Why couldn't they improve the defense when Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback? Which is a valid point.
They won a Super Bowl with Rodgers.
Yeah,
so
one time they had a really good defense,
sure.
and they kind of struggled to find it in other years. But I don't like to be ageist. In fact, I don't think I am. I like to give Jerry the benefit of the doubt, but he came off in that press conference like a doddering old man, who's a little bit past it, maybe more than a little bit past it, calling Micah Michael more than once, sort of, and going through this whole thing about how he thought he had a handshake deal. I mean, which is just so crazy. The idea that you were so stubborn that you thought you had a handshake deal with the player and therefore you weren't going to negotiate any further with his dastardly agent. Like, that's just how business is done in the NFL, in pro sports, Hayes. Everybody knows that, and Jerry knows that. Mm-hmm. So this idea that he was like, my handshake's my bond and I wasn't going to budge off that. Like, it's just so silly the way this whole thing went down. And I'm sure there's a lot we don't know about it, but from what we do know about it, it makes the Cowboys look like they're run by a guy who has no clue what he's doing. And that's a sad thing to say about a guy who also presides over the richest empire in North American pro sports. He obviously knows what he's doing to some degree. Yeah. But this was just an absolute debacle on every level.
Yeah, it was. And again, they have all this cap space, and it's meaningless now. You can't use it. There's no one available to be signed. And that's another thing. All we talk about with Jones and the Cowboys is how much they're worth. That's his legacy. Is he bought the team for $190 million and it's worth $11 billion or whatever it is. $13 billion, whatever it is.
Right.
Like that's all it is. And here's another example of it. Well, we're not going to pay this guy, but now we got all this money. And it's just money, 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 as opposed to production and making sure the players, are on the same page. And yeah, it was not a good look for Jerry Jones. Yet I think it's a consistent one, quite frankly, because really this is the way he's been operating for a long time. It's a mess, and the Packers swooped in and said, fine, we'll take advantage of that. And the rest is history. All right, Eric Kratz coming up. We will catch up with Clarence Hill Jr. He's in Dallas. He'll join us in about an hour. He was there for the presser last night. Day after, what's the result like? What does he make of Micah Parsons? Does he think Parsons is worthy of being the highest paid non-quarterback in football history? That more in about an hour. Jays-Brewers tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Last night we let the liquor talk. I can't remember it.
All right, OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Dave Feschuk, former Blue Jay Eric Kratz coming up here in a moment. Jays-Brewers tonight. Kyle Schwarber hit 4 home runs last night.
Jeez.
21st player in MLB history. And I would say that Delgado four-game home run at the Dome is one of the, 4 or 5 most famous regular season games in Blue Jay history?
Oh,
you know, like one of the great regular season moments that I can think of in Blue Jay history. It's just incredible to see that last night. And those old school Philly unis are so solid, too. I'm so happy they were wearing those when he did that last night.
Well, and he was the last Philly to do it, wore that uniform, of course, Mike Schmidt. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how long ago it was, Hayes. Like, that's like before our time, like the 80s, early 80s stuff, right? Like, it's crazy how it just doesn't happen very often, and pretty magical night. Yeah,
Schwarber is so easy to like. Like, we saw him at the All-Star game, right? He won the, what did they call it? The bat off?
The swing off?
The swing off, that's what they called it. And he went 3 for 3 and just mashed. He's got the beard. He looks like he just wants to like hammer beers, hit home runs, hang out in the clubhouse, win ball games. Like, he just looks like an awesome guy. And he's had a great career. And that Phillies team, they're a really good team. But 4 home runs last night. Unreal. All right, here's former Blue Jay co-host with Foul Territory. Here's Eric Kratz. What's happening, Eric?
How we doing, boys?
Doing well, man. How many 4-hit games did you have throughout your career?
In the big leagues, I don't think I had any.
Uh-oh.
I could, like four dingers. 4 dingers is that's like a great season for me.
Right, man. 4 home runs. Like, how dialed in does a guy have to be? And at what point does the other team say, like, maybe we should have avoided throwing that last pitch? You know, like, do they go back to the clubhouse and say, obviously we had the wrong game plan last night, but, man, 4 home runs. Like, what more can you say about Schwarber?
Unfortunately for the Braves, the personnel that they're running out there right now, they've just been decimated with injuries. So that to me is where it wasn't the game plan as much as it was, well, who do we have that will get them out? And the ironic thing is, I thought he was going to hit his 5th one. I really thought, like, wow, this is going to line up and he's going to hit it because he was facing a position player. And sure enough, of course, it's the position player that gets him out.
Yeah, exactly. Incredible.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that, Eric. You know, we've been having that debate about the position player pitchers. I mean, I was watching the Angels playing the other night. They were getting drilled. They had a guy in there who's throwing like 35-mile-an-hour lob balls in a Major League Baseball game. Like, do they have to intervene on this? It seems like I don't know the stats behind it, but it seems like it's getting more common. Maybe it's just late season stuff when teams are getting drilled. But do you think that should be, you know, the subject of a Major League Baseball rule where they avoid that farce, or are you okay with it?
They kind of made a rule, kind of like a half-baked rule. They understand. Major League Baseball's not gonna make a crazy rule over it because they understand that there is some longevity and health to their players, to pitchers, which teams are just burning out left and right. It's just injury. And I think this is a way that they feel like they can help curtail that. And the rule is, you can't pitch unless it's an 8-run game after the 7th. But the thing that most people don't know is you can actually pitch a position player if you're winning by, and I don't know what the exact number of runs is, but you're able to put in a position player if you're winning, which most teams don't. But the reality is the value of it really does help health, and it helps the team in the long term to not have to waste another bullpen guy for an inning.
With former Blue Jay Foul Territory co-host Eric Kratz. So we got the Brewers in town tonight, and as I'm sure you're aware of this, Eric, this city is buzzing right now. The Jays, you know, they've had such a great year. They're a fun team. It's entertaining. Whenever you kind of got an underdog vibe, it's got the major league script playing out. You know, they broke camp, and people are like, what the hell is going on here? What are they going to do this year? They just kept getting better and better and better. And now they've set up the rotation because they had an off day yesterday, and, you know, they've had this 6-man rotation where they got Bieber tonight, Gausman tomorrow, Scherzer on Sunday. Let's start with Bieber going tonight against Peralta for the Brewers, but he looked great in his opener last week in Miami. Would you anticipate that continues? Do you think maybe he was running on adrenaline and maybe he comes back to earth tonight? Where does your head go first when it comes to Bieber stepping on the mound at the Rogers Center for the first time?
I believe it, and I only believe it because I listened to a couple interviews of his after his game. He didn't rush his rehab assignment. He didn't rush it to make it back, which I can't believe how tough that would have had to have been, because like, you go to a new team, it's like, all right, I'm partway through my rehab, I'm ready to help this team. The Guardians, they weren't in the playoff hunt. I guess they were in the hunt for a little bit, but you know, now you're on a team that's in first place. Like, I'm gonna speed this up. But he said, I took the time that I felt like I needed, that the organization felt like they needed, and he showed he was ready. And to me, I think being ready is the biggest thing. When a veteran comes back from an injury, he knows what it's supposed to feel like, and he clearly was juiced about what he did. My opinion, I expect the same. And maybe I wouldn't have said that about 10 days ago when the Brewers were I think they had scored like 14 of 15 games. They scored 8 or more runs. Now they're going through a little bit of a swoon, which is okay, and they're not scoring as many runs. But I think this is going to be a big series for the Brewers to step up, but also the big series for the Blue Jays to say, you know what, we're not just hitting on, or we're not just beating American League teams, which I think American League teams, while I rarely say this, it's a weaker league. It's a weaker league, and I think there's some hate for the Blue Jays. There's some hate for the Tigers. There's some hate for, anybody else that's up in, the Astros or the Mariners up in the West. And I don't think it's completely unwarranted hate, but I think it's an opportunity for the Blue Jays to really show that, hey, you know what? We are as good as the best team in the National League.
Hey, Eric, when you look at this Brewers team, I mean, obviously you talk about that run they had. They won 14 straight there. They've lost 8 of 12 since. And, we were trying to bat it around before you came on, Hayes and I. Like, is this team for real? Do the Dodgers and the Phillies, the teams that are sort of seen, they may not be ahead of the Brewers in the standings, but they've got a pedigree of maybe being a more playoff contender type of team than the Brewers. Do you think they scare anybody, or do you think people are kind of waiting for them to sort of fall back to earth and sort of reveal themselves as the not quite top of the standings team they may be?
All right, well, I have to first ask you guys, do you think that the Blue Jays are top of the standings team?
Well, I mean, literally are they? Yes, like the Brewers, but do I think the Yankees and the Astros are scared of them? No. I wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't, based on their history. Again, I don't think the Dodgers would be scared of Milwaukee. Should they be? I guess that's what we're asking you. Should they be?
For sure, and that's why I wanted to ask that, because there's so much similarity in these two teams, American League, National League. Two teams that have won games. The goal of being in the big leagues is to win games, and I don't think every prospect understands that. They're like, well, I've done so good in AAA, and I went up and I only got 25 at-bats, and I got sent back down. It's like, well, did you do good in those 25? Well, 25 is not a lot of at-bats. And it's like, okay, this is the big leagues. It's about winning. And so when you're winning in the big leagues, like the Blue Jays, like the Brewers are, you have to have some level of respect. I think it's less scared and more confusion or bewilderment in the sense of, why are these teams winning? Why are the Blue Jays winning? I can say why the Blue Jays are winning. It's because this team should have been winning the last 3 or 4 years consecutively. They've had great defense. They've had great pitching. They've had a lineup that you're like, oh, this lineup is going to bang, and they just didn't. And then the pitching fell off a little bit this past year, but 2 years ago they were phenomenal starting pitching, and the bullpen wasn't necessarily as locked down as it needed to be once Romano went down. So there's things that make teams not win, and the Brewers have figured out how to win games. Are they scared? No. But my advice would be, you better be, because this team hits the ball out of the ballpark. The power numbers, again, there's so many similarities between the Blue Jays and them. Their power numbers, while they're not league leading or even up in the top half of the league, for the last half of a season, the power numbers have come through, and they've been one of the best. I think it's been top 5. The Brewers have. And you sit there and you go, all right, well, I guess we need to respect them, but we're not scared of them. Those teams are not scared of the Brewers. But right. I also would say that no big league team is scared of another big league team, because you're cooked if that's the case. Yeah,
well, exactly. That applies to every sport. If you walk on the pitch, the field of play, the ice, and you think the other team's better than you, or you can't compete with them, you're screwed. With Eric Kratz. So, you referenced young guys coming up and, trying to find a role. And there was a pretty positive update on Anthony Santander about half an hour ago. I guess he's going to take live batting practice today. He's going to travel with the team down in Cincinnati. He's been on the 60-day IL. Prior to going on the IL, he really did nothing. It's been a complete write-off season for him. But, he's a veteran, switch hitter, hits for power. This would suggest he's going to be available to them in the next couple of weeks. Do you think they should put him back in the fold and let him catch up to speed and just say we got to trust him because of what he's done throughout his career and the reason we gave him $90+ million? But as a result, Lucas has got to come out, or Barger's got to come out, or Clement's going to lose at bats, or whatever it is. These younger guys who have played really well for them and really factored in. Lucas isn't young necessarily, but he's played really well for them. Where do you stand on that divide? Like, sticking with what got you here, or do you just, once Santander's ready, he's like, I can play, I can hit for you, do you put him back into the fold?
You put him back in. You definitely put him back in.
Mm-hmm.
Because of, first of all, it's not a bad problem to have too many bats in the lineup or too many bats available to you, because you can find places to put the best 9 batters out there and not just, we got to go with the hot hand. The other problem is, or the other thing is too, a lot can happen between now and when he gets healthy. So to me, that would be a good problem to have, to say, should we put Santander in the lineup? And the reason totally is why they will. And, guys like Clement are going to lose at bats. Guys like Lucas are going to lose at bats, is because he adds a layer to the lineup when a pitcher, and we just talked about not being scared, so that's kind of funny that I'm talking about this, game planning as a pitcher, as a catcher, as a pitching coach, you have to figure out how to navigate a lineup, especially when you start talking about playoff chase baseball, you start talking about playoff baseball. It's all about how you navigate through the lineup. And when you have what many would consider an aircraft carrier like Anthony Santander in the lineup, it changes how you approach other guys. Not saying one guy is going to hurt you more than another guy. It just means that every time you're in a situation, you have to know where Anthony Santander is coming up. Okay, I can walk this guy because there's 2 outs and a power hitter is still 2 batters away. But he changes the dynamic. Just like when the Mariners picked up Eugenio Suarez, who had a 4-home run game earlier this year for the Diamondbacks, he came in and I think he was like 3 for his first 30 as a Mariner. But the team's offensive production went up. It's not necessarily Santander's production. It's what it does to the rest of the guys. I can't walk Vlad because we do not want to face Santander with a runner on first and second. I can't walk Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette hits a lot of pitches that are outside of the strike zone. If Santander, for example, would be hitting behind him, I'm not saying he would be hitting behind him, they have to throw to him. They have to throw pitches closer to the zone, which Bo Bichette is going to make even harder contact than he already is on pitches that are outside of the zone, because you just can't give a guy like Santander base runners to then drive in, because that's his specialty. That's his superpower.
Well, I can't wait to see him get back if and when that does happen, because like you said, it's a pretty good problem to have. You throw in a guy who can hit for power, and everything's been pretty positive for this team right now. And I don't know if that's going to be in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We'll see. But it's going to be a fun weekend with the Brewers in town, and I'm sure you'll be enjoying that like you do every night with every game that's cooking out there. And we really appreciate you taking time for us. Thank you, Eric.
Absolutely. Anytime, boys.
You got it. Eric Kratz, former Blue Jay, Foul Territory host, or co-host with Foul Territory. Great to catch up with him. But there you go, Dave. He's like, you put him in. Find a spot for him somewhere. Again, maybe it's not every single day in the lineup. Maybe he's not just your DH, regardless of whatever the matchup is. But yeah, I mean, I think that's likely going to happen if Santander returns and he can play. He's going to be on that playoff roster, and he's going to get some at bats.
Question is, how long's the leash, man? I really believe that's going to be – we're going to be talking about that. It won't be long before we're talking about that, because a guy that's a notoriously slow starter, I just cannot imagine he's just going to start sprinting out of the gate here, right? It's going to take him a while, and the question is, how long can that while be that you put up with it?
That is the ultimate conundrum, and that's the gamble, one way or the other. But I would lean towards it probably happening, and we'll see what the timeline is on that. Steve Phillips coming up into the next hour. More on the Micah Parsons trade and the fallout in Dallas, and also how pumped up people are in Green Bay. I'm seeing videos of him flying up. He's ready to go. And, all of a sudden that back is fine, Dave. Parsons will be playing week one at home against Detroit. The back's 100% fine. No problems here. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
back. Steve Phillips in about 15 minutes. Jays-Brewers tonight. Kyle Schwarber hit 4 home runs last night. We'll get back into the fallout of the Micah Parsons deal down in Dallas. And I'm seeing the details of his contract coming out because NFL contracts are so complicated.
Yeah.
They're never what you like. The initial reporting is never 100% accurate. And not that it's meant to be misleading. It's just they throw out the bold number, and then you actually get into the details of what's actually guaranteed and how many years it's really going to be in terms of which way the team and the player could see it. And I'm already seeing that details are coming out, and it's a little bit different than what was advertised yesterday. It looks like closer to a 3 or 4 year deal at around $42 million per year.
Right.
Is actually what it's going to be in the end, because every deal's got, extra years and extra money, and some of it's guaranteed and some of it's not, and some of it's like injury related kind of insurance type bonus structures. So we all talked about it yesterday, $47 million a year. It looks as if it's actually going to be closer to like $42 million a year, which would be appropriate because that brings him closer to where Myles Garrett and TJ Watt actually are.
Right.
Right? Like it's he leapfrogged them, but not by 15%.
That's what it seemed
18%.
like. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like when it was first reported. But then, the breakdown is, you're right. These things are crazily complicated. You think you need to be smart to be an NHL capologist. An NFL capologist is infinitely tougher, right?
Yes.
Because there's just so many more parameters to the deals in terms of guaranteed money and all the options and all the other categories of signing bonus and this and that. It's crazy stuff.
Right. There's escalators and all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, the way it breaks down, according to Spot Track, which is a pretty good website to follow and track all this stuff, is it's $120 million guaranteed at signing, which would suggest $40 million over 3 years. Okay. And then there's some early vesting. There's you got to track where the guaranteed money is per year, and that really tells you what this actually means for both parties. Right. But it's not only about the Packers may be thinking, okay, we can get out in 3 years. Not that they'd want to. It's more likely Parsons in 2 years goes, now you got to pay me again. Now you got to re-up again, which very well could happen.
Which the teams are fine with because they don't like taking too much injury risk. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So that it could work for both parties.
And if he performs great over the next 2 years, then awesome. If you're the Packers, go for it. Let's keep rolling. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
It's Mail It In Friday.
The plant called and said if you don't come in tomorrow, don't bother coming in Monday.
Woohoo! 4-day weekend.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Brian Hayes, Dave Festruck. We've got Steve Phillips coming up here in a few moments. Jays-Brewers tonight. We've got Clarence Hill Jr. coming up from Dallas. The fallout of the Micah Parsons deal. Kenny Clark on his way there. Kenny will be playing, obviously, for the Cowboys on Thursday night in Philly. Less than a week away from the NFL. We had college football being played last night. It happens quickly, man. All of a sudden, it's football weather here in Toronto today.
How do you love to be a Dallas sports fan? In the same year you trade Luka, you also trade away Micah. And why is the question on both fronts?
Crazy, man. Like, Frankie brought that up yesterday, that in the same calendar year, like the two biggest superstars in Dallas, I would think, maybe Dak, maybe the quarterback of the Cowboys is always the number one guy. Maybe CeeDee Lamb. But like Parsons was just unanimously loved because he was so young and all he does is terrorize the opposition and he chases quarterbacks down and double-digit sacks and all pro every single year. Like, what's not to love about Micah Parsons? And Luka was larger than life. He was larger than life. And they had been in the NBA Finals the year before, and they're both gone, and they both go to the Lakers and the Packers. Like, it's not like they sent them to some obscure place.
No.
Like, I get that feels like an oxymoron with Green Bay because Green Bay is Green Bay, Wisconsin, but the Packers are a massively public team that's always good and always on prime time and always in the playoffs. So, and Luka went to the Lakers. You know, it'd be one thing if you did your fans a service, like it's a disservice to flip both guys, but if you're going to do it, send Luka to Sacramento and send Parsons to like Tennessee or something like that.
Right. And the point is, too, Hayes, like both these trades kind of went the same way in terms of when you have an asset that is that valuable, a Luka Doncic, MVP caliber guy, game-changing player, a Micah Parsons, a guy who can literally change games with the way he terrorizes quarterbacks. You don't just pick one trading partner and trade him to that one team. You hold an auction, and you get the whole league out there bidding for these guys, and you extract the maximum return possible for the greatest asset you're probably going to have. In the terms of the Mavericks, I mean, a generational type asset. Micah Parsons might not be quite that good, but he's pretty damn
close,
good.
Man. He's
the idea
close.
that isn't it just bizarre that both these trades went down very similarly, where for reasons we still don't fully understand on both fronts, those teams went to essentially one team and said, "Okay, let's make a deal." Yeah,
it's a very good point about like the worst possible time to make the deal based on leverage.
Yes.
Like that was like Luka was in the middle of the season. If you do that in the summer, if you announce at the draft Luka's available, you're getting 29 other teams calling you. And it's just a trade war. And by the end of July, you've probably got 5 or 6 unbelievable offers in front of you, and you take the best one. And you're right. It was as if like the Mavericks just decided he's just going to the Lakers. That's it. We're just going to work with them. And the only thing we want is Anthony Davis. And at least, like, Street Clothes is a player. The guy's hurt all the time, and he literally got hurt in Dallas and kind of sewered the rest of their season. But Kenny Clark is a 29-year-old, soon-to-be 30-year-old defensive tackle coming off probably the worst year of his career. Yeah. And that was the pitch that Jones made last night was, well, we needed a tackle. We need to stop the run. Okay. Yeah. And it was the same thing with the Mavs. Well, we needed some size. Defense wins championships, so Street Clothes is our guy. Like, what are you doing?
It's so funny. Yeah. Nico Harrison said essentially the same thing as Jerry Jones. Nico said defense wins championships, and Jerry was saying there's something called stopping the run. Well, come on, man. Let's get serious.
It's a cop-out, man. It's a complete cop-out. Now, the Mavs, they end up winning the draft lottery, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And, they might be able to get out of this. I have no faith the Cowboys will. I have no faith, obviously, because of Jerry Jones. But, like if you're in Dallas, you've already moved on because you got Cooper Flagg. I guess in Dallas, what they're hoping for is Arch Manning now. That's the big thing.
Yes.
Is you got to hope that Arch Manning is the guy that they're going to somehow miraculously either tank for or trade all these picks away and go get him. But the thing is, if Arch Manning turns into who we think he's going to turn into, I don't think he's going to come out this year. Maybe he will. But if he is like this all-world Manning, the third generation, no one's trading that pick.
No.
Like, it doesn't matter if you offer up 15 first-round picks, no one's trading it. Like, if that's what he represents, if Arch Manning is going to be the next all-time great quarterback, the Packers 2 first and your 2 first and a couple of thirds, you're not getting them. Like, it's not the trade's not going to happen. They're just going to hang up the phone. So you have to tank for them. It's the only way you could possibly get them in Dallas, and I don't think that's going to happen.
The other bizarre thing is they trade with the Packers for 2 first-round picks. The problem is they're the Packers picks, and the Packers just got exponentially better because you just handed them Micah Parsons.
That's right.
I mean, so they're not going to be good picks.
No, they've been in the playoffs the last 2 years, Green Bay, and if Jordan Love stays healthy, they're going to do it again this year. So exactly, their picks are in the 20s. At best, maybe even 30s if they make the Super Bowl, which would not surprise me in the next 2 years. More on that later in the hour. Here's our baseball insider joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Steve Phillips. You're not a Lions fan, are you, Steve?
Of course I'm a Lions fan. The Packers aren't going to be in the Super Bowl. They can't get past the Lions.
Come on,
and
Steve.
Did you guys hear Micah Parsons got traded? Did you hear?
Yes, I heard about that. Pretty big news down there, isn't it? Seems like it's pretty big news.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
It is.
The reality is the NFL rules. I mean, it really does. I mean, they have, now, the owners in baseball will tell you that it's in part they rule because of the salary cap.
Right.
Right. That, but that's I don't think that's true. I think it's because every game is an event, and there's 17 games, and it's an event versus a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think it's a different thing to consume from a fan's perspective. But the small market owners will tell you that could be us.
That's right.
If we just get a salary cap.
Yep, that's right. And here's a scenario where this is the Yankees trading, Aaron Judge to the Pirates, in terms of market size and in terms of like Green Bay's got, what do they have, 200,000 people in that town, and Dallas and the Cowboys are worth more than any other franchise in the world. It's pretty incredible. But it does just fall in their lap because the Packers are in Dallas week 4 on Sunday night. Like that just, you can't beat that. And that's the end of the baseball season. Like, you guys are going to be on MLB Network breaking down all the different playoff situations on that Sunday. And the whole world's going to be watching Packers Cowboys on Sunday night. Like, it's going to be crazy.
You'll be watching.
I'll be watching the MLB Network. I will be, yes.
No, I appreciate that.
I will be,
and Matt
for sure.
Cause will be watching
and
the MLB Network as well.
That's right.
Right.
That's
and
right.
Dave, I think you might be watching it, although I think you might flip over and have 2 TVs on at the same time.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
I'm a
right.
2 TV guy.
Absolutely.
All right, Steve. Well, hey, man, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a place where the NFL does not rule, because baseball is ruling Toronto right now, Steve, as you know. And we are in for, we hope, a great series here with the 2 best teams in Major League Baseball down at the Dome, with the Brewers in town, the National League, Major League leading Brewers in town, Steve. And we just had Eric Kratz on. We were talking about this Brewers team, and he was saying how similar their story arc and the way they play baseball is to the Blue Jays. A little bit of an unexpected, magical season where they're at the top of the standings when very few people thought they would be. I mean, how seriously should we be taking these Brewers?
Oh, my goodness. I think very seriously. I mean, they don't have the best record in baseball for no reason. I mean, this is a very balanced team. They're tops in runs scored, runs per game, and yet they're like 17th or 18th in home runs, although the month of August they've started to hit more. But they've got outstanding starting pitching. They've got a big 3 in Woodruff, Peralta, and Mizorowski. And Quintana's been a great number 4 for them, and Quinn Priester's been a great number 5 for them. I mean, he's got 10 double-digit wins and an all-star. So, I mean, they're 5 deep in starting pitching, kind of like the Jays are. But the bullpen has been better than the Jays. Now, Tyler McGill, their closer, is on the injured list with a flexor tendon strain. I'm hearing that it's minor and that it's just giving him a bit of a break. But they've got outstanding setup man in Uribe and Mears, and so they've got some good arms. And Ashby out in the bullpen from the left side, and they are a great defensive team, like the Blue Jays are. So, yeah, they're similar in some ways. I do like the Brewers' bullpen, though, better than the Jays. I wrote about the Jays' bullpen today for .ca, and, a 5.40 ERA since the trade deadline. It's now the 3rd worst, only because Atlanta gave up all the home runs to Schwarber yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The Jays had the 2nd worst bullpen ERA going into yesterday, and then it changed because Atlanta now is the 2nd worst, and the Jays are the 3rd worst. But also, the Jays have the 2nd highest walk rate out of their relievers since the All-Star break, and that's the problem. If you look at the numbers for their relievers since the All-Star break, they're all, 8 walks in 10 innings, 5 walks in 10 innings. Sir Anthony Dominguez, I think, has 9 walks in 8 innings. And, you cannot put extra base runners on, and it really seems like it's been contagious, that unwillingness to get strike one, to work ahead in the count, to throw it over the plate, that there's this thought that they need to nibble and miss bats, and that's where they really, I think, have the biggest disadvantage in this matchup.
Yeah, the bullpen, it was a wild ride a couple of nights ago where, Hoffman blows the save in Game 2 of the series and then comes back out in a carbon copy situation and ends up getting the save, and it got a little bit dicey there. But what does that say of Schneider's approach here? Like, he may not fully trust Hoffman, but does he trust him more than any other option? Is that basically what he's saying?
Yeah, right. So the one thing about Hoffman, to give him credit, right, For a closer, the key is that once you blow a game, what do you do the next time out? And I went through and looked at his 7 blown saves, and through the first 6 of them, he actually came out and did a really good job. I threw the first 5 of them and got zeros the next time. Either didn't get, just got outs in an inning, or he got a save, but he didn't give up anything. But then he had the back-to-back blown saves at one point. And so he does have that ability to flush out the bad day and come back the next day, which is a great trait for a closer. It's just that he's having too many opportunities to have to prove that he can flush it out, right? I mean, the 7 blown saves is the second most. I think Ryan Helsley, who's with the Mets now, who's really struggling out of their bullpen, and who was the closer in St. Louis, has 8 blown saves. So, it's been an issue, and it's one that I would stick with Hoffman. But in the meantime, because I don't think anything dramatic right now sends a message of panic. But what I do is I really do think that in the playoffs, they're not going to have Lauer likely or Barrios in the rotation. I mean, if it's 3 starters, then it's going to be Gausman, Scherzer, and Bieber. If it's 4, Bassett probably is that 4th guy. And so I really do think that Barrios and Lauer will be options in the bullpen, and I think they need them. And I think that, you don't have to say that I'm going to close somebody else, but there will be a time when, it's gone extra innings or Hoffman's in trouble, you need to take him out, or he threw back-to-back days and he's not available, to really give somebody else that shot there. And I think it's likely Barrios for me. I would love to see that for him. I think he's got a resilient arm and that wipeout sweeper that could be effective. But I think he's got to gradually try to at least build in some protection for somebody else in the late innings, even if he doesn't use them for the ninth.
Steve, some news down at the Dome today with the idea that Anthony Santander is expected to take batting practice today. He's going to travel with the team after this series down to Cincinnati. And there's this idea that his rehab stint will start shortly thereafter, coming off this shoulder problem that's kept him out of the lineup since late May. We were just talking, Hayes and I, about how, integrating a guy who's a notoriously slow starter, as good as he can be, 40-plus home run guy a year ago, had a really slow start to this year, partly because of injury, of course. This is going to be a challenge for John Schneider to integrate him and find a way to get some use out of that bat while not sort of hurting the integrity of a lineup that's been working really well. How would you approach that, and what's your level of concern that it sort of upsets the chemistry of the team?
Yeah, so it's a tough one. It is a tough one. I think that as long as Vladdy's hamstring is okay and he'll be at first base, he can use the DH role and play with that a bit. Now, Ty France has been getting some at-bats, and he's done a nice job, Ty France, so far. I don't want to mess up Barger getting at-bats, but he is struggling a little bit right now. And so I think it's going to be a challenge like when the Yankees had Stanton come back. And, they had, Grisham hitting home runs in the outfield and the Dominguez kid in the outfield performing well. And, where were they going to fit everybody with Bellinger? But those things tend to work themselves out. And thank God that Stanton came back when he did, because he's carried them for a while, even with Judge's elbow. So, I think that you're right. It can disrupt the rhythm of the at-bats where guys could be frustrated. And it's going to take really good teammates right now to just accept and welcome him back in. And it behooves everybody if he gets in and swings the bat well. It's not right now. It's not about who's getting the playing time. It's about let's win a championship, and they're going to have to put that in the forefront. And that's the same for John Schneider, that he's going to have to. He can put Santander in there, but in the end, this isn't a time to give him a runway to get right. This is a time to win games. And so his rehab assignment needs to be one where I think they make it extended until he proves he's ready to hit and locked in. Then you bring him back, and if he's successful right away, then you've got a great problem you have to deal with. Otherwise, you're trying to pound a square peg into a round hole, and I don't think you can even try to do it. You got to try to win a game.
So we got Shane Bieber on the mound tonight, and man, he looked good a week ago tonight. But this is another long layoff, right? They went with the 6-man rotation. They had an off day yesterday. First start at the Rogers Center as a Blue Jay. What is your expectation for him tonight?
Yeah, I think the same thing as he did last week. I mean, I think he's like the moment's not too big for him. He'll thrive on the energy of the fan base and the support he's going to get. And the extra time doesn't bother me for him either. On rehab assignments, you tend to sort of spread it out a little bit anyways, in a little longer. So I think that none of that's going to affect him. And if it does, it would only be early, and then he'll get locked in and settled in. He's got such an assortment of pitches that if something's not working early, he always has something else to go to, which is nice from a pitcher's perspective, that if you don't have the feel for your curveball, okay, let me throw my slider, let me throw my cutter, let me use the changeup a little more, and I'll find my way until I get a feel for the curveball. So I expect much of the same from him, and you love having him pitch the first game of a series. You run him out there, the level of confidence in a big series against Milwaukee, a very good team. Peralta on the mound's a great matchup. And this is going to be a fun weekend of baseball. You got the best record in the American League, best record in the National League, and two really fun teams to watch. It is going to be a weekend to go watch games up there.
Steve, I mean, there's concern, of course, that there's two pretty hot teams right on the heels of the Blue Jays. With the Yankees and the Red Sox, they won 4 and 5 in a row, respectively. The Yankees have got a few more against the White Sox. The Red Sox have got a few against the Pirates. Not that you can take any team lightly in Major League Baseball, but what is your level of concern that the Yankees are mashing, they're heating up, the bats are incredibly hot right now, and the Red Sox are a really young, intriguing team that's on the rise here. I mean, this is not going to be an easy fight here, and how do you handicap it?
Yeah, I look at it and say, bring it on. Let's go. We're the Blue Jays. Bring it on. We've got a 3.5 game lead, 4 in the loss column for a reason, and we have the tiebreaker because we kick your butt. So bring it on. You guys can try to catch us if you want. And I think for the Jays, one of the things that's always good is to strive for the thing in front of you, and as opposed to looking over your shoulder. And I think that for the Mets right now, they now have closed the gap on the Phillies where they can start. They've got something to charge for instead of worrying about looking at the Reds on their heels in the playoffs trying to catch them. And I think for the Jays, maintaining the best record is a really good thing. Think of it, with the home record the Blue Jays have, they need to be the 1 seed. So beat Detroit, stay ahead of Detroit. That's got to be the goal. Forget about the Yankees and Red Sox. They're not going to come close to us because we're going to keep winning because we want the number 1 seed. Because with a 42-22 record at home, you want as much of a home field advantage as you can throughout the entire playoffs, and they've got that opportunity in front of them. So I don't think you even worry about looking over your shoulder. I think you just charge ahead.
Absolutely. And we were talking about this at 4 p.m., that this is a marquee weekend. Every game's important. Every series is important. But you got the top team in the NL and the Brewers. You got, them and the Tigers. The Jays and the Tigers are the top 2 teams in the American League. It's a hugely important litmus test. But at Yankee Stadium next week, and then they got the Red Sox, I believe, the following week. Those are the 2 series, right? You stay in the moment. They're all gonna parrot the same cliches: 1 game at a time, 1 pitch at a time, 1 at bat at a time.
Right.
This will be significant, and you can make a statement that I think can ring out throughout baseball. But in terms of just the American League East and the chase, that 3-game series next weekend at Yankee Stadium, that's as big as it gets.
Yeah, no question about that. And I'm hoping to get down to one of those games there as well. I think it's going to be so much fun to watch those teams go at it. And, and the way that they've lined up the pitching, they've got it lined up to get their guys, their main 3 lined up for that Yankee series. And it'll be these same 3. It'll be, Barrio or Gausman and Bieber and Scherzer lined up again for that series next weekend. So the Jays got it lined up the way that they want, and you can't let any one game or anything happening in the standings to deflect or distract you. You just got to keep playing your best baseball, 1 pitch at a time, 1 inning at a time, 1 game at a time. I'm going to throw that cliche at you, and so I'm prepping you for what you're going to hear from the players.
Yep.
But I do think that that's the way they have to. They can't worry about winning games. They got to win 1 pitch at a time. When you do that, you end up winning enough games.
Hey, Steve, I really liked you. You were talking earlier in the chat here about your column on tsn.ca about the problems with the Blue Jays bullpen. And And maybe you could just expand on that a bit. I mean, you pointed out really something that I hadn't considered, maybe as much as you had, which is that, they're not really challenging hitters in the way they should be. And we've heard that, Ross Atkins came on this show and talked about how that is the mentality they're encouraging, is to challenge hitters and to not be afraid to throw strikes. Don't nibble around the edges. Don't be afraid. And then consequently, don't be afraid to get hit. But they're having a hard time finding that balance. So why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that it's confidence is what it is. I do. I really think it's confidence, because when you throw your fastball and they hit it, and you think to yourself as a pitcher, oh, okay, well, I better make the perfect pitch. I better throw it right on the corner. I better throw it right up in the spot I want in the zone. I can't make any sort of a margin for error. And then what ends up happening is, it's ball one, ball two. And then what you have to do is you actually have to throw your fastball over the plate to get back into the count, and that's when they whack you. And so, so the courage and confidence to throw the first pitch over for a strike is so critical. Whatever that is, to throw it for a strike, even if you catch more of the plate than you want to, because then it changes the entire at-bat. Then you can start a pitch on the plate and break it off, and the hitter sees strike because he just saw a strike, and he can then start to chase. When you're not starting it on the plate, they're in take mode, because and so what they do is they keyhole you and say, if it's not right down the middle, I'm going to take it. And so there's a mentality, and look, this feels contagious in their bullpen right now, that they all feel that way. And maybe, Hoffman's is tied for, or he's got the second most home runs for any pitcher who's just been a reliever all year. He has 12 home runs he's allowed, Hoffman. Yep. The guy in front of him was Chad Green, who had 14, who got released. So he's now, among active pitchers, the guy with the most home runs allowed that's exclusively been a reliever. And it's because sometimes he falls behind in the count, and then he's got to throw it over the plate. And then the hitter is in command at that point. So this has to be a mentality. And the other thought I had was, if Barrios goes down there, you got a fresh personality, a fresh approach, a guy who is more of a strike thrower, and you can start to get guys talking about, get in the zone. You got to throw strike one, get ahead. It takes confidence and courage to do it, but they've got to make that adjustment, because ball one, ball two, you bring a guy in with runners on, he walks the first guy. All it does is compound the problem, and they're doing it because they want to avoid contact. Trust your stuff and trust the best defense in baseball. Trust them that if it's put in play, they'll make a play for you, but do not give them extra bases and extra base runners.
All right, Steve. Enjoy the weekend, buddy. It's going to be a good one. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys.
There's Steve Phillips.
Weekend.
You too. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Drive the built-in Canada fuel-efficient fun-to-drive Toyota RAV4. Gas or hybrid models available. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, Atkins said that to us a few weeks ago. We can live with the home runs. If you're throwing strikes, be aggressive. Get after it. And that's, they're giving up home runs, but also not being aggressive. Bit of a conundrum there for them. But something's got to turn here. This bullpen just, it can't continue. And Milwaukee's going to expose it. The Yankees next week will expose it. It's got to be better. And we'll see what comes of it tonight. All right, we'll come back and head down to Dallas and get back into the Micah Parsons story and the fallout and where Jerry Jones takes it from here, how Cowboys are reacting, what Parsons is going to bring to Green Bay. We'll get back into the Marner Masters sit-down out at the Canadian Olympic orientation yesterday, and Mitch getting into some of the reasoning as to why he left Toronto or felt that he should leave Toronto. So we'll touch on that a little bit later this afternoon as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Oh, baby, you wanna dance till the sunlight cracks. And when they say the party's over, then we'll bring it right back. And we'll say, I love it when you do it like that. And when you're closer.
All right, Dave Naylor in about an hour. CFL on TSN tonight. We got the college football going this weekend. Man, that's going to be a big game tomorrow, Texas, Ohio State. I'm not a huge college football guy, but I want to see Arch Manning play on the road. That's the number one team in the country versus the number 3 team. That is how you start a college football season.
Seriously, man.
It doesn't get better than that, man. What a launching pad It's incredible. So we got that, and then on Thursday night you got the Cowboys in Philly playing the Eagles. We're less than a week away from opening night in the NFL, and I guess it got started yesterday, around this time yesterday. Micah Parsons was announced he's on his way to Green Bay for Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks, and a guy who's covered the Cowboys for a long time joins us now, a writer with DLLS Sports. Here's Clarence Hill Jr. How you doing, Clarence?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm glad you talked about college football because I'm in Columbus right now getting ready for the Texas-Ohio State showdown. And I certainly was at the press conference last night where Jerry basically defended his decision to get rid of a generational talent in seemingly unrestricted Hall of Fame pass rusher in his prime of his career at 26 in Micah Parsons.
Yeah, man. I mean, okay, so I have a feeling where you're going with this or how you feel about it based on the way you just described that scenario yesterday. But is there any way to spin this positively for Jerry Jones and the Cowboys? Can you be a contrarian here and say this is why it could make sense at some point?
Sure. I mean, first of all, let's just line one. You don't trade a pass rusher for a nose guard, okay? Right?
Yes.
Can we agree on that?
Yeah, of course.
You know, that's not to be disputed, okay? And Kenny Clark is a good player. He shouldn't be, run down in any part of the scenario. You just don't trade the pass rush for nose guard. Kenny Clark is not near a player that Micah Parsons is, even though he's a solid guard. But it's the two first-round picks. The Cowboys have 4 picks in the top 117 over the next 2 years. Certainly, you can flip those for more picks. You know, Jerry tried to compare it to the Herschel Walker trade in 1989 when they traded Herschel Walker to Minnesota for a bushel of picks and basically was the foundation of those title teams. This is not that, okay? This is certainly not that. But, yeah, there's hope for the future. The problem is, who cares about the damn future in Dallas? They haven't won in 30 years. You pay them Dak Prescott at the top of the market, $60 million. You pay CeeDee Lamb at the top of the market. The goal is to win now, isn't it?
You would think.
You would think so.
It's not waiting for another couple of years for it to pay off, right? When these picks come, you want to win now. So that's the tough part. But yeah, you can spin it positively and talk about the picks, and now that's going to help build them, and I can spin it to other picks and do whatever. But that's 2-3 years away, and the window for Dak is the next 2 or 3 years.
So
right?
Clarence, I love your Twitter bio. You talk about how you're a Cowboys writer since '97, through 7 coaches, 4 playoff wins, countless scandals, controversies, and unfulfilled expectations. So in all the stuff you've seen in Jerry's world over those many, many years you've been covering this team, like, where does this affair, the Parsons affair and ultimate trade, rank in terms of the shake your head moments?
Well, it's shocking because Jerry, listen, my first year on the beat, Barry Switzer got arrested at the airport, taking a gun to training camp, okay?
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the Michael Irvin trial, and I've seen all this stuff. But considering those people, personalities, characters of those teams, it was shocking, but it necessarily wasn't surprising that, that those stuff was happening. Jerry's never let a player he wanted to keep go. He's never let a player in his prime go. A generation, they've always found a way to sign them. The only players they, let go after playing well was really DeMarco Murray. And they didn't think he was a generational running back, which was cool. But they don't generally let guys go like this, and they always find a way to figure it out. It's like they figured it out with Dak, and they figured it out with CD, and they figured it out with Dez, and they figured it out with Zach Martin. They always find a way to figure it out and keep his guys. So it's shocking that he let his guy go. And this is a guy that he bonded with. He tried to get a Micah Irvin type relationship with Micah Parsons. He wanted Micah to be his Michael, which is why he kept calling him Michael Parsons all the time.
Right.
He kept having that Freudian slip, so to speak. Jerry got mad. He got mad because Micah, did not. He felt Micah reneged on the deal they had. He felt Micah was disloyal, not Micah. Basically they had a handshake deal, and now he can't trust Micah. and he got mad and he made the trade because that was certainly not the plan coming in. And Gary was ready and willing to make him the highest paid non-quarterback.
With Clarence Hill Jr. So you know everything there is to know about Micah Parsons, his career. You've covered him since day one. You've seen him. I think he finished second in Defensive Player of the Year, voting as a rookie, double-digit sacks every single year of his career. If a Green Bay Packer fan calls you up, says, Clarence, what are we getting here, and how much did this guy just improve our chances of chasing a Super Bowl? How would you answer that?
Well, again, you got a generational player. You got a guy. You got your Reggie White. How about that? Are you old enough? Are they old enough to remember Reggie White going to Green Bay?
Absolutely.
Okay? Who's old enough to remember that? And when Reggie White came to Green Bay and took them to the Super Bowl, you got a guy that could be the missing piece to a Super Bowl run. You got a talented team. You got a quarterback. They got a talented linebacker, Edgerrin Cooper. Micah Parsons, Edgerrin Cooper on that defense. They're going to be loaded. And so you got a potential missing piece to a Super Bowl run, a guy that can be a difference maker for you. Again, and I bring up Reggie White. Only Micah Parsons and Reggie White have had 12 sacks in their first 4 seasons of their career. It ended up being a Hall of Fame career for Reggie White. It looks like it's on their way for Micah Parsons.
So, Clarence, where does the Cowboys fan find hope now? Judging from stuff I'm reading off of your social media feeds, there are a lot of people looking toward Columbus, Ohio tomorrow for a certain guy who's going to be wearing the burnt orange of the Texas Longhorns and saying maybe the Cowboys can get Arch Manning to be the savior of this lost era. What do you make of that, and how do you give a Cowboy fan hope?
Cowboy fan, Dallas fan, people in Dallas are it's like a gut punch. The same kind of year you lose Luka Doncic, which shocked the world and shocked Dallas, and they had a hard time getting over that. You lose Micah Parsons. This is 2 gut punches in a year. Certainly people are talking about Arch, but people don't know. Arch is going to stay 2 years. Arch is not staying 1 year. And even if you get Arch, there's not a media stick. He's a rookie quarterback. Again, I talk about the drought, and how long Cowboys have to wait to get back to the Super Bowl. And that's what you're doing. And if you're in the running for Arch, that means that this thing fell off the rails with Dak, and you've been a bad team for a couple of years.
Well, we'll get you out of here with, I guess, the question about what you're covering tomorrow with Clarence Hill Jr., who's in Columbus ahead of the biggest college football game of the decade, century, maybe. I've heard some people saying biggest game of all time. I don't know if I'm buying that, but, Arch Manning, how good is this kid in your opinion, and do you think Texas can hold on to that #1 team in the country status throughout the year?
Well, first of all, I was at Texas USC for the national championship game. That was the biggest game. With Vince Young and Reggie Bush and all those Heisman Trophy winners, 2 Heisman Trophy winners on USC. Those loaded teams. This is an anticipated game. There's a lot of Texas. I'm a Longhorn. I'm here as a fan. I'm not here to work.
Okay.
I'm here to cover, but I follow the Longhorns a lot. Everybody's excited about Arch, but he has 2 starts in his career. It's on the come, and the thing about Arch is that I think he did it the Aaron Rodgers way. He came into Texas. They did not force him on the field. He got to learn behind Quinn Ewers. They didn't force him as a freshman, and he got to cook. He got to develop, and he should be ready to go. He wasn't forced on the field to make plays as a freshman. He got a chance to watch a quarterback, an NFL quarterback, who made the Miami Dolphins roster, a guy who took Texas to back-to-back playoffs. He got to watch him handle the media, handle 3rd and 14, handle all this stuff and learn from him. But now it's his turn. And so, again, he is the legacy of the Mannings. And he certainly has big uncles to lean on and granddads to lean on to talk football. And certainly Sark. He went to Texas to be developed by Sark. And so it's his time.
It's his time, and it's kicking off tomorrow at noon. You'll be there. Enjoy it, Clarence. Really appreciate the insight. Thank you for this.
Thank you, guys.
Clarence Hill Jr., Cowboys writer for DLL Sports, and I guess big Longhorn fan. So there you go, man. Longhorns, Buckeyes tomorrow. #1 ranked Longhorns, number 3 ranked Buckeyes. The Buckeyes are favored. It's a road game for Texas. Like, what a scheduling. Like, you start your season in, like, so many great teams just ease into the season. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have we seen that? Obviously, the most famous one, Michigan tried to squeeze through Appalachian State back in the day, and we know what happened there. But this is a scenario where you hope it's not a blowout. You hope it's a close game. And if it is, whoever loses is not really going to be affected in terms of what the rankings are going to be at the end of the year. Like if
you're right,
if they each lose one game or 2 games or whatever, and obviously one of them's going to lose tomorrow, this won't be held against them if they're both true powerhouses by the end of the year. And they've expanded the college playoff again anyway. So you have to presume both teams are going to get there in the end.
I mean, you talk about pressure, though. Like, it's like Clarence said. Like, this Arch Manning, he's had 2 starts. I mean, and everybody's calling him the second coming, and the name on the back of your jersey is a legendary name that's not easy to live up to. And you're not the son of Peyton or Eli. You're the son of Cooper and the grandson of Archie. But like there's a lot on this kid, and he's making by reports, Hayes, he's already making a very, very healthy salary thanks to the Wild West that is the NIL deals in college football.
Yep.
Several $1 million, and he's yet to prove himself. So that comes with some serious weight on the shoulders.
Yeah, big time. And again, this is it now. There's no, who's it? Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was, the quarterback that was the starter last year.
Right.
When he got hurt, that's when Arch Manning went in. But now there's none of that. You're not getting replaced. You're playing. And this is obviously what he's waiting for. It's been a couple of years. He's going into his junior year. But it's going to be a great story. And I think a lot of people in the NFL are going to be tracking it because even if he doesn't come out this year, if he keeps building his resume, let's say it's a great year and he goes back to college, like next year is going to be a circus waiting for that guy to get out. And how teams are going to prepare for that, and tanking in the NFL will be a huge conversation because it'll be bigger than ever. I mean, it'll be bigger than ever. There's been big quarterbacks who have come out, and you're waiting for them, and Trevor Lawrence was probably the most recent one, in terms of like what he did at the collegiate level, and you knew when he was coming out. It obviously hasn't worked out great for him or Jacksonville for that matter, but there was tanking going on that year, like significant tanking. Remember the Jets won a game late in the year, I think against the Rams or something, and that pushed them to second, which I think, who'd they end up taking? Was it Zach Wilson they took that draft? They might have. Or, I think Zach Wilson they ended up taking
I think you're right.
instead of Trevor Lawrence. But anyway, that's what's coming with Arch Manning.
The death march for Arch.
That's exactly what it's going to be called. And probably valid if he gets even close to what the expectation is. So I'm looking forward to watching that game tomorrow. Richie Larea will join us from TFC, obviously a big part of Canada's national team. We're real close, inside a year with the World Cup on the horizon. So we'll catch up with Richie and start looking ahead to that. Dave Naylor coming up. Best bet still to come as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog. This segment on TSN.
Mail-in Friday brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. All right, so Mitch Marner out at the Olympic orientation camp, and he's going to be on that team. I think he's a lock to make that team, as he should be. He was on the Four Nations. He's going to have a really good regular season in Vegas, I'm sure of it. Sat down with Mark Masters. Now, I've noticed, there's a lot of Leaf fans that are like, enough of this guy, like move on. I think it's important for him to sit down and do some interviews with the media in Toronto. And Mark went out there and he sat down with Mark, and he's got a good relationship with Mark, and Masters has covered him closely his whole career. Like Mitch, he announced he's out and he disappeared and he flew down to Vegas. Like, I think he's from here. He spent 9 years here. At some point, he's going to talk. And I would guess he's going to do more of these one-on-ones. I would think so. So he spoke a little bit about his time here in Toronto, and he revealed that, and he's not alone. His agent's been, I guess, doing the rounds as well, Darren Ferris, about what happened after they lost in the playoffs. And listen, Mitch is so uncomfortable to listen to in interviews. He always has been that way. He's not comfortable speaking. You can tell he's overthinking everything. It's incredibly robotic. I'm sure they have a PR team that's trying to help him out and prop him up, but as a result, he never sounds natural. Ever. He never has, and this was no different with Mark last night. But, he spoke about idiots allegedly, doxing his home address and more, and unfortunately there's idiots. There's morons in every city. There's idiots with every fan base that just have no sense of, just humanity. And, you can be a super fan and a diehard, but there's always a line. And unfortunately, everywhere, including in Vegas, I'm sure of it, there's idiots. And there were idiots in Toronto that I'm sure made his life difficult at times. But I don't, to the idea, and I don't know if this was his intention, but the idea of like painting the whole fan base with that brush, I think is silly and completely unfair. It's a rabid fan base. It's a diehard fan base. It was a fan base that was furious based on the way the team performed, not happy with the way he played. But with celebrity, these are the downsides of celebrity. You're very well known. Everyone knows you. All your neighbors know you. Everyone knows, in the neighborhood where you live. I remember that as a kid driving around. Oh, yeah, that's where Daryl Sittler lived. That's where Rick Five. Like, that's just the way it's been with Leafs forever.
For sure.
Like people know where they are and they walk around the city. And, last year he was treated like gods. And this year, because of a couple of morons, I guess he's flipped the script. But I'm not buying, and I won't buy, that that's the reason he left. He had made his mind up. He was out of here. And honestly, it's just in the best interest of everyone for that to happen. Go play in Vegas. The Leafs needed to move on. He needed to move on. That interview, if anything, just gave me more closure on it. He had to go. He's out. He's in Vegas now.
He had to go. And I mean, look, that stuff about, the stupidity of people, threatening to show up at your house. His agent has said he had a death threat that was traced to some kid in Oakville. The idea that people know where you live and you're hiring security after the season's over, Hayes, that's sad stuff.
Yeah, it is.
It's not uncommon, unfortunately, for people of public profiles.
Mm-hmm.
It's not uncommon. You hear about the stalkers and you hear about the people that jump your wall and get into your compound, and it's scary. Like it's scary stuff. But to your point, that's not the story here. That's not the reason he's leaving. That's the reason he's leaving, Hayes. The reason he left is because of the losing. Let's be honest here. Like, let's just be frank here. If these guys would have won the way people expected them to win in the playoffs, none of this would be going on. The stuff about the fan base being cruel and the hatred on social media being hard to take, which is another thing Mitch said, that wouldn't be a part of the storyline. It's about losing. Losing is at the root of this. These guys won 2 playoff series in 9 years. Mitch Marner was a massive underperformer beyond Game 4 of all these consequential series. You look at it, 0 goals, 6 assists in his most recent 18 games, 5, 6, and 7. You can't look away from those numbers.
Yeah.
And those numbers are the reason that the relationship had to end. Plain and simple, to kind of, take one last shot at the fan base and one last shot at the market. It just eludes the real storyline here, which is about a lack of performance for an awfully nice paycheck.
Yeah, and that's exactly why the rubber hit the road in the end. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough in the playoffs. And, naturally people, they all heard it. And they of course you're going to hear it. It's the Maple Leafs. And
you should hear it.
Yes, of course. You're a professional athlete. Like, obviously that's going to happen. And, you're right. In terms of what the bar is and what people are really looking for, it's not that high. And yet I think Marner, again, being from here, and his family's from here, his friends are from here, his agent's from here, they know how to play a portion of the fan base like a fiddle. And this will land for people. Because there is a percentage of the fan base that truly believes the the reason this team hasn't won in 60 years is because of the fans and the media, not because of the players, right? Not because the players underperformed or because management has done stupid thing after stupid thing or because ownership has been inept at times over 60 years. It's the fans and the media. And it's the ultimate cop-out, right? And it's the ultimate coping of, well, my team can't win, and I don't want it to be because of my favorite player doesn't get the job done when the lights are the brightest. So I'm going to blame Joe Blow from, Leslieville because he's an idiot. Or,
Joe from the Bridge.
Yeah, Joe from the Bridge, exactly. Or Gary from Barry. That's the problem. And it's not. It's the players. It's the players. It's the management. It's been 60 years. This isn't a small sample size. And unfortunately, that will land for some people that will say, I knew it. You ran him out of town. Yeah. Idiot fans, not the player. Hour 3 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.